An important thing to consider when picking out a tennis racket is the beam width. How thick is the beam of the racket? It's measured in millimeters, and you're going to see a few different types of beam widths. Some it's going to be constant beam. So let's say it's 23 millimeters all the way from here, here, and here. 23 millimeters all the way across. Another beam width type is called tapered or different beam widths, where sometimes you'll see three measurements. So they'll measure the beam width here, somewhere in the center here, and then towards the throat. And you'll see sometimes you'll see a tapered beam or different beam width lengths. So let's talk about the different types of beam widths. A thinner beam width would be 18 to 21 millimeters. Now a thinner beam at contact, a thinner beam, you're really going to be able to feel that ball. So someone who uses a thin beam will really be able to get control and feel at the point of contact and sacrificing some power. So a control racket would be one that would be a little bit heavier, but a thinner beam, so they can really feel that ball at contact. A thinner beam, 18 to 21 millimeters, is what I would consider to be a thin beam. And a lot of times manufacturers make up for the thinner beam rackets by making them heavier. A lot of higher end rackets are thinner beam, 18 to 21 millimeters, but heavier to allow more plow through. A thicker beam would be 25 to 28 millimeters in the beam width. So if the thinner beam allows for control and feel at contact, a thicker beam will allow for some good, easier power at contact. So just think of it, I think it's a little bit intuitive. The thicker the beam width on a racket, the more you'll be able to power through the ball and plow through the ball. A lot of the times, not always, but they'll make lighter weight rackets with a thicker beam. So lighter weight would be less power. So if you thicken up the beam a bit and go that 25 to 28 millimeters, it'll help plow through the ball a little bit more. Like in this example, this is a thicker beam racket, but it's also a lighter, oversized head racket. So it makes up for that lighter weight by allowing more plow through at contact. So if someone wants a little bit more power, going to a thicker beam is a very simple suggestion to make. A standard beam width is probably 22 to 24 millimeters. It's going to be the best of both worlds, really. So it's not too thin, so you're not sacrificing too much power, and it's not too thick, so you're not sacrificing too much feel. That 22 to 24 is really the sweet spot of the racket, I would say, or sweet spot of many of the rackets. It allows the thinner beam aspects where you can really get that connection between yourself and the ball, and you're not sacrificing too much power. So that 22 to 24 is a good beam width for a lot of rackets. And as far as should you use a constant beam or a different beam width or a tapered beam width, that's really up to you. The benefits of tapered beam is usually you can get the benefits of a thicker beam with the aerodynamics or the maneuverability of a thinner beam. I'm sure it's debated a bit, but there's many popular rackets where the beam widths are uneven to allow for more maneuverability and without sacrificing too much power. When you're looking for a tennis racket, knowing which beam width you want to use is a very important thing to consider, whether you want a more controlled feel with a thinner beam or a more powerful feel with a thicker beam racket.